Lesson 18. I am not alone in experiencing the effects of my seeing. The idea for today is another step in learning that the thoughts which give rise to what you see are never neutral or unimportant. It also emphasizes the idea that minds are joined, which will be given increasing stress later on. Today's idea does not refer to what you see as much as to how you see it. Therefore, the exercises for today emphasize this aspect of your perception. The 3 or 4 practice periods which are recommended should be done as follows. Look about you, selecting subjects for the application of the idea for today as randomly as possible, keeping your eyes on each one long enough to say, I am not alone in experiencing the effects of how I see. Conclude each practice period by repeating the more general statement. I am not alone in experiencing the effects of my seeing. A minute or so, or even less, will be sufficient for each practice period. Deep exploration. Every thought you have is like dropping a pebble into a pond. The pebble, the thought, creates ripples that radiate outward. These ripples don't stop at the edge of the pond, but continue moving, touching places and people you may never see or realize. The kind of pebble you drop determines the nature of the ripples. If you drop a pebble of love, a thought filled with kindness, compassion, or forgiveness, the ripples that radiate are gentle and soothing. They move outward, touching everything in their path with harmony and healing. Love-based thoughts ripple into the universal consciousness, strengthening connection and unity. But if the pebble you drop is one of fear, judgment, or resentment, the ripples take on a harsher, more disruptive quality. These thoughts create dissonance, reinforcing separation and conflict in the shared mind. The important takeaway is this: the ripple effect is always happening. You cannot stop the ripples. What you can do is choose the kind of pebble you drop. Every thought, perception, and way of seeing contributes to the collective experience of the world. Thoughts are never neutral or unimportant. The lesson emphasizes that thoughts always carry energy. They are never without consequence. This means even the smallest pebble dropped into the pond has an impact. The pebble might seem insignificant, but its ripples extend far beyond what you can see. Imagine you're at a coffee shop. You have a choice, pebble of love. You smile at the barista and thank them sincerely. This small act ripples outward, uplifting not just the barista, but the next customer they greet, and so on. Pebble of fear or judgment. You're impatient, grumble about the wait, or avoid eye contact. This ripple creates tension, which may spread to others they interact with throughout the day. In both cases, the ripples move far beyond your initial interaction. This is why the Course insists that your thoughts and the perception they create are never neutral or insignificant. Minds are joined. The pond itself is the metaphor for our shared, interconnected mind. While the ripples might originate from individual pebbles, they flow through the same water. This shared medium represents the collective consciousness, what the Course calls joined minds. You might think your pebble affects only your corner of the pond, but because the pond is unified, every ripple you create eventually touches every other part of the water. The ripples of your seeing, how you perceive and interact with the world, merge with those of others, contributing to the greater whole. Another layer of the metaphor. Imagine a still pond on a quiet morning. One pebble dropped into its center creates ripples that extend calmly outward. Now imagine several pebbles being dropped at once, each creating overlapping ripples. This is what happens in the shared mind. The ripples of one thought interact with the ripples of another. A pebble of love interacts harmoniously with others like it, amplifying the calm. A pebble of fear creates disruption, clashing with the ripples of love. I am not alone in experiencing the effects of my seeing. This statement becomes clearer when we recognize that the way we perceive, our seeing, doesn't just shape our own experience. It radiates outward, influencing others in ways we may not notice. Metaphor applied to perception. Think of seeing as the moment when you drop the pebble into the pond. The act of seeing, interpreting, and assigning meaning is what generates the ripple. If you see with fear, the ripple moves outward as tension, conflict, or separation. If you see with love, the ripple moves outward as connection, peace, or joy. The key here is that you are never alone in this process. Others are affected by the ripples of your seeing, because the pond connects us all. The practice for this lesson is an invitation to become more conscious of the pebbles you're dropping. By applying the phrase, "I am not alone in experiencing the effects of how I see blank," you become aware of the ripples you're creating in the shared mind. Example 1. A lamp. Practice line. I am not alone in experiencing the effects of how I see this lamp. Insight. You may think of the lamp as a solitary object, but seeing it with gratitude for the light it provides creates ripples of appreciation that subtly shift your perception and others. Example 2. A person you dislike. Practice line. I am not alone in experiencing the effects of how I see this person. Insight. Seeing them through judgment creates ripples of disconnection that reinforce separation, but choosing to see them with curiosity or forgiveness shifts the ripple, influencing not only your relationship but also the collective energy. Example 3. An abstract concept, loneliness. Practice line. I am not alone in experiencing the effects of how I see loneliness. Insight. If you perceive loneliness as despair, the ripple strengthens isolation. If you choose to see it as an opportunity for connection with self or spirit, the ripple transforms into hope. Closing thoughts. The pebble and pond metaphor captures the essence of today's lesson. Every thought we drop into the shared mind creates ripples. These ripples extend far beyond what we can see, shaping not just our individual experiences, but the collective reality. The invitation of Lesson 18 is to become more intentional about the pebbles we drop. Will you choose love or fear? Kindness or judgment? Remember, the ripple effect is always happening. By practicing today's lesson, you contribute to a wave of love and healing that touches everyone, everywhere.